Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts, Em and Jay, and today we're looking at Season 4, Episode 11 of Netflix's She-Ra. This episode picks up where the last one left off. So the gang explores Beast Island, although the island isn't exactly what I was expecting. The original Beast Island had a thick jungle on it, and there were tons of monsters roaming the island, but here it's far more technological. There are monsters on the island, but the name Beast Island doesn't seem fitting anymore. In the last episode, the computer said that Beast Island was a dumping site for hazardous waste, and that seems to have affected the terrain to the point where the island is mostly inorganic at this point. It would have been cool if we could have learned more about the first ones in Beast Island while the characters were exploring, like rummaging through their garbage, but for the most part they just wander around looking for Entrapta and being scared of everything. We do get some revelations, but nothing really about the first ones, and there's so much about them that we don't know still. This seems like it could have been a good opportunity. Hopefully we'll get more answers in Season 5. The episode begins with Bo, Adora, and Swiftwind heading to Beast Island in Mara's ship. Bo is worried about disobeying a direct order from Glimmer, but Adora says that she'll understand once they get Entrapta back and everything works out. So Glimmer is just new Queen Angela. It'd be nice if they would acknowledge this and reflect on it. It seems like he only cares because it's Glimmer, but his worrying is interrupted by an alarm going off, and Swiftwind says he's sensing something. Apparently it's something big and not good. The ship starts falling out of the sky, but it lands safely in the water, in front of a very imposing looking Beast Island. They go ashore and Adora's freaking out because of all the stories she heard as a kid about Beast Island. Interesting how those stories ended up being true, but the stories about the Crimson Waste were exaggerated. It is dangerous, but still manageable, enough for people to decide to live there. But Swiftwind uncovers Entrapta's mask, which means she must have been there, but they can't tell how long it's been. They head out and Swiftwind is still hearing that noise, but the others can't. Bo is able to see that the island is filled with First One's tech, but it's not in any good shape, so he reaffirms that it is a dumping ground, but the computer already told us that. It'd be cool to start discovering some new information, but instead they wander around for a bit while Swiftwind sings to himself to try to keep calm. Things get strangely quiet, and they notice a giant monster tangled in some vines. They try to back away from it slowly, but it ends up charging them. Adora tries to transform into She-Ra, but it fails. Apparently she's somehow cut off from her magic, although the sword is able to transform, so she's not completely cut off. They try to run from it, but Swiftwind gets caught in some vines, just like that horror movie cliche. Adora tries to free him, but for some reason they're getting held up. Maybe it's because the vine is tech, so the sword of protection is having trouble cutting through it? It doesn't look like tech though. But Bo questions why she can't transform, but Adora doesn't know. But Swiftwind is still distracted by that strange sound and is upset that no one else can hear it. The monster catches up with them, and Bo tries to attack it, but his arrow has no effect. Apparently his arrows aren't working either. Maybe the island affects technology. It was a dumping ground for hazardous waste. Instead of swinging at the spider, Adora tries to transform again, and it fails, giving the spider the opportunity to knock her down. I'm surprised she didn't transform before she got on the island. Considering how nervous she was to come here, you'd think she'd want to be as strong as possible while going into the unknown. But just when it seems all hope is lost, they're rescued by a hooded figure using magic. It's pretty obvious that this is King Micah, so the hint at the end of Season 3 ended up being true. He fights off the monster, but for some reason the three of them go and hide behind a rock and just watch, instead of helping him out, leaving him to fight their battle. That was a little weird. I could understand if there was an injury and they had to rush off to treat it, or maybe they used this time to free Swiftwind from the vines, but that's not what happens. Maybe they wanted to give Micah a hero moment, but it just kinda made them look bad. But Micah's able to drive off the beast, and Adora thanks him for saving them. This is when he pulls his hood down and it's revealed that he is King Micah, much to the trio's surprise. Meanwhile, Glimmer enters the Crystal Castle and demands to speak to Lighthope. She's ignored, so she tries to pull the Queen of Brightmoon card, but Brightmoon doesn't have any authority here, so I don't know why she thought that would work. Despite the lack of response, Glimmer still persists, even calling out the Etheria password from the first season. After getting nowhere, she decides she has no choice but to threaten magic against the castle. This finally triggers a response, but not one she was probably hoping for. The castle acknowledges her as an intruder and sends spider bots to get rid of of her, but Glimmer stands her ground, refusing to leave until she's heard. Too bad she can't take running her kingdom this seriously. Back on Beast Island, the group bows to King Micah. He's surprised that they know him, but says that there's no need to bow since he's no king there. They introduce themselves, but Micah's skeptical, and starts tugging on Bo's face to make sure he's real. He apologizes and explains it's been a long time since he's talked to anyone real, and they admit that everyone thought he was dead. He explains that the Horde apparently exiled him to this island. Wouldn't Shadow Weaver have known about this? And I'm surprised the Horde would exile him. You'd think such a high-profile prisoner would have been useful to them. They tried to use Glimmer to get Queen Angela to end the rebellion, but apparently they just tossed him on this island. But he has managed to survive all this time. He's a little crazy, but it's understandable. They start to say that they're from Bright Moon and they know his daughter, but Micah senses something so they have to move. They run for a bit before he says it's safe to rest now. He also offers them a bug to eat, but they're not at that point yet. He asks what they're doing on Beast Island, and they explain they're here to rescue their friend Entrapta. It turns out he has seen her. Apparently she stole his rations. They're at least happy to know that she's okay, and Swiftwind asks where she went. He starts to answer before being distracted by Swiftwind being a talking horse. He also just now realizes that Swiftwind has wings. I know he's been stuck on this island for 10 plus years, but they're kind of hard to miss. They get him to focus again, and it turns out that she went to the center of the island, which is apparently the most dangerous part of the island. He says that's where the signal is the strongest, and it turns out that's the signal that Swiftwind has been hearing. He explains that the tech on the island is mostly degraded, but some of it still works, and something at the center of the island is giving off a signal, which apparently causes living things to lose their resolve, and end up becoming a part of Beast Island. Bo asks why he and Adora can't hear it, and Micah says that they will if they stay on the island for too long. He says he's heard it every day, but nothing's gonna stop him from getting back to his family, and he wants to know about the rebellion back in Bright Moon, and if they know Glimmer. They say Glimmer is their best friend, and he says it's just like Glimmer to want to be friends with the big kids, so he doesn't realize how much time has passed. He asks about Angela too, but they get interrupted by a monster roaring. This happens a lot this episode. He says they have to keep moving, but he'll help them find their friend, and asks if they can get him off the island too. They agree, so they head out. Hopefully he can recover and maybe take the throne of Bright Moon, cause let's be honest, Glimmer's not doing a great job. So they make their way to the center of the island. Swiftwind is telling Micah that horses are now able to go into the war room and have their own chairs, and that stables have been abolished. He's really going to manipulate him like that? Then again, I wouldn't put it past Swiftwind. But Micah's been isolated for over a decade, and he's not in the best frame of mind. Maybe Bo and Adora shouldn't have left him alone with Swiftwind just so he could confuse him more. Adora's really excited that Micah's still alive, and she goes on about how cool he is, but then they undercut the moment by having him eat a bug and them being really grossed out by that. But that's just basic survival. Bo thinks that Glimmer will be so happy to see her dad that she'll forgive them for everything that happened. Glimmer's really in Bo's head, huh? At least now he knows they did the right thing, even though it was pretty obvious. But he is starting to come around. He acknowledges that Glimmer hasn't been a good friend, and that they really don't have anything to be forgiven for. That's pretty good progress. But then he questions if they can even be best friends after having a big fight like this. But this isn't the first time they fought. What about Princess Prom, when Perfuma asked Bo to the dance and Glimmer got really jealous, and also pretty controlling. But Glimmer's had a control issue this whole time. I'd be more worried about their friendship surviving Glimmer's power trip. He finishes up his ranting by mentioning that he doesn't like Shadow Weaver, and that's interesting to hear because we haven't really gotten to see his perspective on that whole situation. We did a little bit in the first episode of season 3, but nothing really since then. But then he notices that Adora seems to be lost in thought. She says she's upset about not being able to transform, and she can't tell if it's something on the island that's stopping her, or if Glimmer was right, and she really does mess up everything. So Glimmer's really gotten to both of them. Glimmer really crossed the line when it comes to Adora. She's been put through a lot. I really hope all this gets addressed and Glimmer can come away a better person, because right now she's gotta be one of the most unlikable characters in the show. Bo tries to comfort Adora, saying that she's still a hero and he's still a tech master, and they can get through this together, especially now that King Micah is helping them. Adora agrees with him, but she's still unsure of herself, and as they walk off, there are these eyes that start blinking behind them menacingly. Glimmer has defeated all the spider bots back at the Crystal Castle. This place really needs better security. She calls out to Light Hope, asking if she's gonna send more bots or if she's ready to talk now. She argues that that magic belonged to Etheria and the first one stole it, and now it can be used to stop the war, but Light Hope ignores her until she outright says that she she wants to use the weapon, which finally gets Lighthope's attention. I guess if Lighthope can't use Adora, she'll just use Glimmer. Back on Beast Island, the signal seems to be getting louder, which is really messing with Swiftwind, but Bo and Adora still can't hear it. Micah says they're getting closer to where they're going, and starts asking questions about Glimmer, like what she's like. Bo blurts out that she's stubborn, which Adora's annoyed by, even though he's right. So she tries to soften the blow by saying she's also very brave, and that she hopes she can be the hero that Glimmer deserves. But Micah laughs this off, and instead asks if she still has that stuffed animal he made for her. It's nice to know that Micah made her stuffed animals, but I'm surprised they remember that cowl plushie exists. It only showed up in one episode in the first season, for about a minute. Adora says that Glimmer started using his staff. He's surprised by this and asks if that's dangerous for a little kid. It's actually because he doesn't realize how much time has passed on the island, but Bo doesn't argue with him, and instead says that Glimmer won't listen to anybody. He starts to say she'll only listen to Shadow Weaver, but he ends up getting cut off, of course. Micah realizes they're being followed by those eyes. It turns out they're these creatures that travel in packs called pukas. They run, and Bo starts going off about how they never should have come to the island without Glimmer, because she could have teleported them out of there, and starts crying that she doesn't trust them. Maybe if they learned to communicate, their little talks could actually get them somewhere. They did have opportunities to talk out their issues, but they just ended up talking in circles. Micah gets upset by hearing this because he thinks that she's too young to be in the field, and says that Angela should know better than sending her out. But then he starts to realize that he's been on the island for longer than he thinks, so he decides now is the time to demand answers, even though they're in the middle of running for their lives. The pukas reveal themselves, and Bo thinks they're pretty cute, until they show their teeth. Figures. Swiftwind starts to panic and runs off ahead. Adora chases after him, but he gets cut off by some menacing looking vines. At this point, the signal has become so strong that Adora and Bo can hear it. The vines wrap around Swiftwind and he basically gives up, succumbing to the signal's effects. Adora tries to cut him free, but then Bo hears it too and starts to succumb, saying that it was too late and they couldn't fix it. You know, Swiftwind's been hearing the signal since before they stepped foot on the island, and Bo's already given up? He only just started hearing it. I'm surprised Swiftwind would have such strong resolve and Bo doesn't. Maybe it's because they're so close to the signal, so it was easier for Swiftwind to resist before? Maybe if they'd been fighting it the whole time like Swiftwind had, cause this kinda came on suddenly. This whole time they've just been strolling around the island, and now they're giving up after only one trap. Adora insists that they can still get out of there, and Micah tries to pull him out, but the vines are encroaching on him and Adora too. They reach for each other and Adora tells him to stay strong, and that Glimmer still needs him to come back and help her be queen, which was a poor choice of words because hearing this made Micah realize that Angela is gone, but he's so distraught about Angela that he gives in. So Adora is left alone begging everyone else to come to their senses, but then she remembers the promise she made to Queen Angela to take care of each other, which they haven't exactly been doing a great job at. Regardless, it gives her the motivation to resist the signal, and she's even able to transform into She-Ra. Figures the power of friendship wouldn't kick in until the last minute, but She-Ra is able to blast the vines away and free her friends. Bo is thrilled to see She-Ra again, and Micah is shocked that She-Ra is a real thing. Despite all the time they've spent talking this episode, they haven't actually caught him up on anything, have they? Adora explains that it wasn't the island keeping her from transforming. She was upset about what Glimmer said to her and thought she might be right, and she really does just make everything worse. Nice going, Glimmer. I can understand her emotions affecting her ability to transform, but what about Bo's arrows? It seemed like those weren't effective either, and maybe the island was affecting the technology they had, but I guess that wasn't the case in the end. We already know she doesn't actually need the sword to transform, so this just boiled down to her having to try harder, but she vows to take care of them and also promises to fill Micah in on everything. I understand wanting to protect him from the truth, but most of this episode was just them walking and talking, and yet he still knows so little. We're almost done and not much has happened. So they all go to face the pukas, only for Entrapta to show up literally at the last minute, and all the pukas scatter. I'm actually disappointed we didn't get to see a cool action scene with all of them, but at least Entrapta's back. She looks like she's been doing pretty well for herself and now has this giant robot she rides around in. There's also a reference to the first time she met Adora.
Princesses, I'm saved! Princesses, I saved you!
even though there's only one princess here, but it's good to see she's doing alright. It's not surprising though. She is obsessed with First One's tech, so she probably thrived in this environment. Back in the Crystal Castle, Glimmer finally comes face to face with Lighthope. Even though Lighthope gave Glimmer temporary access, she tells her she's trespassing, because the Crystal Castle is only for She-Ra and her steed. So Glimmer tells her that She-Ra isn't there because she ran off with Bo on a stupid mission. She also says she left her behind, but then catches herself and says she left everyone behind. She then tells Lighthope that She-Ra's too afraid to use the weapon, but she isn't. So then Lighthope decides that Adora is compromised, and she's not willing to do what's necessary for Etheria. So it's Mara all over again, except this time Lighthope has a backup plan, rather than waiting another 1,000 years to drag another girl into this. So Lighthope tells Glimmer that She-Ra hasn't been able to balance the planet yet. Glimmer asks how she can balance the planet, and Lighthope explains that there's actually only one piece missing. She explains that the princesses connected to the rune stones act as conduits for the heart of Etheria, but there's one princess that isn't connected to her rune stone, and that's Scorpia. So we've known that the planet isn't balanced since the first season, and that the rune stones are at the center of that balance. But when she first explained this to Adora, we saw lots of princesses. Some we knew and some we didn't know, and we assumed we would meet them all as the series progressed. But if Lighthope only needed Scorpia, what was the point of showing Adora all these other princesses? It seems like they established something but then dropped it. Usually something like this happens because the show was cancelled prematurely, but from what I understand, they had a full 54 episodes already approved before the show even aired in 2018. So how could they have such a big oversight? It was really disappointing because there's a lot of cool things in that screenshot, and a lot of people were excited to see what might come of this. One of these princesses has a tail, so there was speculation that she might be a Magicat, and could even be related to Catra, but that seems unlikely now. We might get to learn more about Catra in the 5th season, but there are also these other princesses, like the one with horns. So did they just design these characters and not have a plan for them? But that's where this episode ends. We did get some plot progression, which is good. Micah and Entrapta were both found, and Glimmer and Lighthope are getting ready to destroy the world. But a lot of this episode was them wandering around and talking, which kind of dragged for a 22-minute episode. We did get to see Beast Island, and it is a pretty interesting place, but I do wish we could have gotten more secrets revealed. So that leaves 2 more episodes of this season, and then it's on to season 5. So those were our thoughts. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more content like this, and you can hit the bell for notifications for when we put new episodes out. If you want to support us, you can hit the join button to become a member, or you can support us through GoFundMe or Buy Me Coffee. Links are in the description. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone. Bye guys.